Today on Around Kansas Deb gives a lot of great ideas to safely experience Kansas without the pandemic ruining all your plans. Next, Deb travels home to Virginia and is gathering some greenery with her family. On the front porch, the talented Jim Richardson. Ron Wilson is entertaining us with another poem, and we end with Michelle Martin's story about Christmas at the Little House on the Prairie.
Closed captioning brought to you by Ag Promo Source. Together we grow. Learn more at agpromosource.com. This segment brought to you by Kansas Corn. Learn more at kscorn.com.
Good morning. Welcome to Around Kansas. I'm Deb Goodrich, coming to you this morning from the Blue Ridge Mountains. I'm in North Carolina, and if you throw a rock just a little ways, you'll be in Virginia. So right here where I grew up, and it's great to share this beautiful place with you. I'm staying with my sister, where Christmas has already exploded all over the place. Denise loves to decorate, and so do I. So it's kind of a fun tradition, and we've had fun making some traditions while we were here visiting. So got a great show for you today, and speaking of Christmas, Michelle has a wonderful segment coming up at the end of the show about celebrating Christmas with the Little House people, Little House on the Prairie. So that's going to be a great segment. And then I'm going to share in our another segment this morning, our wildlife segment. I'm going to go out into the woods and gather some greenery with my sister and some friends. So make sure you stay tuned for that. It's going to be awfully nice. We want to welcome again Historic Lecompton, who's advertising this month for you to come and visit their Christmas trees, and it's always such a beautiful display. In the museum there, the Territorial Capitol Museum in Lecompton, is always beautiful, and especially this time of year. So do visit and tell them that we sent you. And while you're making plans, and I know making plans is somewhat difficult right now, but this will not last forever, because nothing does. You know, it came to pass is the most comforting thought I can think of this year. So it came to pass that this too shall pass, and it won't last forever. And one of these days we'll be able to visit again, and we'll be able to enjoy our historic sites again. But in the meantime, you know, figure out what you can enjoy outdoors, and there are a lot of great days that you can still get outdoors. So Council Grove is one of those places that you can enjoy, just walking up and down the street, visiting the historic sites around town that you can enjoy outside. The Council Oak and the different sites that you can do a little driving tour of Council Grove. And Council Grove has big plans to commemorate the 200th anniversary of the Santa Fe Trail. So you'll want to watch their website and their Facebook pages. They've got a couple of things dedicated to the events that they will have coming up in 2021, many of which will be outside regardless. So no matter what is going on at the time, you'll be able to take advantage. So share some ideas with us on Facebook. If you've got a special place you love to go, to get outside and get away from everything, whether it's Wilson Lake. I know we get a lot of pictures posted from Wilson Lake, or Lake Shawnee, you know, where you've got that beautiful trail going around it. Just so many beautiful sites around that you can get out and enjoy, take pictures. We have people ask how they can get a picture on the cover of Around Kansas. Well, just share it with us. That's the simplest thing. Just share it on our Facebook page, and I go through those and select one to be at the top of the page. And we have so many beautiful ones to choose from, but that's the quickest, easiest way. Hey, we got a great show for you, so stay with us this morning.
In 1821, a trade route was opened from Missouri in the United States across prairies and mountains to Mexico. In 2021, we will mark 200 years of epic conflicts and grand adventures, larger-than-life personalities, and sweeping landscapes. Join us on an historic journey. The Santa Fe Trail lives on.
Find us on social media or santafetrail.org.
Okay, looks like it's time for our tour. Welcome to the Fort Wallace Museum. Here at the museum, you're going to find some really interesting stuff, like our replica stagecoach from the Butterfield Overland Dispatch. We've got facades from the fort buildings. We've got an 1870s flag. There's a plesiosaur that was discovered locally. We've got the Ray pump organ collection. We're a little bitty place with a great big story, and we'd love to have you.
Watch Ag AM in Kansas online at agaminkansas.com.
The Territorial Capitol Museum in Lecompton has selected 50 of its most beautiful and most historic trees for display this year, making it possible for you to celebrate the season and maintain your social distancing. Visit all of our attractions when you come to Lecompton. Visit both museums and our local shops and restaurants. And Merry Christmas from everyone here.
This segment brought to you by the Western Kansas Wildlife Travel Center in Oakley.
So while visiting back home and getting ready for Christmas, our favorite thing to do is head to the woods and get some greenery. So that's what my sister Denise and our cousin Diane and our friend Diane reminds you of my brother Daryl and my other brother Daryl, doesn't it? So that's what we did and had such fun. It was so wonderful to get outside. And I've got some, where is it here? I've got some things to share with you. This is a white pine cone. Aren't those beautiful? And this is one Denise had painted last year for Christmas, painted it silver. And this is ivy. And when you talk about breaking ivy, you know, the holly green and the ivy green, this is what they're talking about. It's actually mountain laurel. And, of course, a little mistletoe. And then we got some, gathered some Virginia pine. That's Virginia pine. And some holly, some magnolia leaves. Oh, and I am shipping a lot of these things back to Kansas for my own personal use. So watch out, post office. So if you will, indulge me for a minute or two as we go tramping through the woods in the Blue Ridge Mountains. The hanging of the greens starts with the gathering of the greens. Greenery heralds the Christmas season, whether it is a wreath of pine or a sprig of mistletoe. For country folks, picking greenery is as much a part of the holiday as singing carols, and more welcome than a fruitcake. I took to the woods with my sister Denise, my cousin Diane, and our friend Diane. In the shadow of Fisher's Peak, which straddles the Virginia-North Carolina state line in the Blue Ridge Mountains, we broke ivy, trimmed magnolia, picked holly, gathered white pine cones, bittersweet and great laurel clippings. Our grandparents and great-grandparents and generations gone before have done exactly the same, dragging nature's bounty back to the home place. In the past, decorations were simple, inexpensive, and right there on the farm. We recreated those times, getting outside, tramping through the ivy thickets and the woods. The dogs came with us, as happy to be in the woods as we were. The earth was damp and green, and the tree stumps were covered in moss and lichen. Galax leaves, once picked by mountain women and shipped to the Waldorf Astoria in New York City, sprang from the steep banks. We sang snippets of carols and old rock and roll songs and laughed in the fresh air. We talked the neighbor, Jason Hill, into shooting down some mistletoe. He brought his shotgun and we staked out a suitable tree in Uncle Buck's yard. A blast split the air and the mistletoe tumbled to the ground.
That's good.
We dragged our haul home and began filling pots and garden spots. My sister believes in lights, and she began stringing lights in the greenery. We tied the little sprigs of mistletoe with ribbons and waited for the kissing to begin. We worked until well past dark and left a pile for the next morning. In the meantime, I think if you look to the east, you can see the glow from my sister's house, and maybe the smell of pine will drift your way.
Welcome to the Western Kansas Wildlife Travel Center, right here in my hometown of Oakley, Kansas. We're the front door of Western Kansas, located on 3 main highways, I-70, US 83, and US 40. And all those roads lead to history, beautiful scenery and adventure no matter which direction you go. We now have an Ihop. That brand that you've trusted up and down the road in all your travels is staffed with local folks, real people just like you and me, and we're waiting on you to join us. So for fun, adventure, fuel up, fuel your body, and let's have some fun.
ValleyVet.com is your one-stop shop for your every animal need. From prescription meds, vaccines, equipment, and more for the ranch to the show ring. Shop ValleyVet.com for fast shipping and great prices.
Valley Vet Supply.
Highways 40, 83, and I-70 come together right here in Oakley. Roads that lead to businesses, to magnificent rock formations, to scenic vistas, to places where legends were made. Roads that lead us home. Discover Oakley, the gateway to western Kansas.
This segment brought to you by Bob Schwartz Financial. Values, commitment, transparency.
Hi, I'm Jamie Bloom, and I had the honor of interviewing National Geographic photographer and Kansas native Jim Richardson. In this segment, Jim talks about growing up on the farm in Republic County and how he developed an interest in photography.
I grew up basically on the farm as being a bit of a loner and an outsider.
Yeah.
So I ended up having a lot of hobbies, and everything from building model airplanes and model railroads to building telescopes and microscopes, and just all sorts of things that would keep me busy, especially during the summer season, you know.
Right.
And that was, I think that was probably formative a little bit about the rest of my life, because I had to be able to learn to do things on my own. You know, there wasn't constantly somebody around, so that's where I figured out how to learn things from books. So that was just part and parcel of being out there in the countryside.
Right. Yeah. I know your dad was kind of an amateur photographer, right?
Yeah, he was, and a rather ardent one. He had piles and piles of popular photography and modern photography sitting around the house. He was a subscriber. He would always, on his trips back and forth to Texas, he had a few favorite pawn shops he would stop at, keeping an eye out for good cameras. So we had some pretty good cameras. I started out on a little Ihop folding camera, which was sort of World War II era. But then I graduated to one of Dad's cameras, which was the Zeiss Icoflex, which was, if anybody out there remembers cameras, that was the Zeiss equivalent of a Rolleiflex, a twin lens reflex, a serious camera for the era.
Yeah.
And it gave me a lot of opportunities. He photographed a lot of stuff. Every once in a while, he'd get some picture that was really pretty good and enter it in the Salina Journal photo contest.
Yeah.
He won a couple of times. One second, I remember him getting a check for $15 for winning third place or something like this in the Salina Journal contest.
Yeah, that's great.
It was.
Yeah. Kind of an early start for you then, just to kind of be around it and mess with those cameras a little bit and become interested.
It was. And he, eventually I wanted to do darkroom stuff, developing film and making prints. And he found a kit in a pawn shop that came with an enlarger and trays and developing tanks and a whole bunch of old chemicals and old paper that were probably out of date.
Yeah.
But at least it gave me a chance to experiment.
Yeah. Try it out.
And basically in the evening, while Mom and Dad were in watching Red Skelton and I Love Lucy,
on TV.
I'd take over the kitchen, close the door, and as long as nobody drove by with their headlights on high beam, I had a dark room.
Yeah.
You know? And it was pretty miraculous, really. The first time that you see a print, you put it in the developer, and you see a print come up in that glow of the safe light. That's a pretty miraculous thing, really. And I don't know anybody who's ever seen it that wasn't sort of taken by it. I certainly was.
Yeah.
And that really got me going on the experimenting with all kinds of things. So I was taking pictures of lightning storms at night, and I could put my camera up to the eyepiece of a microscope, and so I could photograph, you know, the little creatures that you'd see in the stock tank. Water, pond water, parameciums and hydras and all the rest of the little creatures down there. And I could take the twin lens reflex and hold a pair of binoculars out in front of it, and they would just about line up, and take pictures of squirrels in trees. At least I could. It was really a horrible picture when I did that, but at least I could point to that blurry blob and see if that's a squirrel.
Right. See more of Jim's work on his website, jimrichardsonphotography.com, or at his gallery in Lindsborg, Kansas.
I'm Bob Swartz, and I've devoted the last 43 years to helping Kansans reach their retirement goals and to protect the family farm. At Bob Swartz Financial, we believe everyone should be able to live the retirement they've always dreamed of. Our team of professionals can help you create an efficient strategy using a variety of investment vehicles to help you address your financial needs and your concerns. Bob Swartz Financial values commitment and transparency.
The Territorial Capitol Museum in Lecompton has selected 50 of its most beautiful and most historic trees for display this year, making it possible for you to celebrate the season and maintain your social distancing. Visit all of our attractions when you come to Lecompton. Visit both museums and our local shops and restaurants. And Merry Christmas from everyone here.
Okay, looks like it's time for our tour. Welcome to the Fort Wallace Museum. Here at the museum, you're going to find some really interesting stuff, like our replica stagecoach from the Butterfield Overland Dispatch. We've got facades from the fort buildings. We've got an 1870s flag. There's a plesiosaur that was discovered locally. We've got the Ray pump organ collection. We're a little bitty place with a great big story, and we'd love to have you.
This segment brought to you by Santa Fe Trail Meats in Overbrook. Let us help feed your family.
Cowboys love to eat, and it was an essential part of modern day life as well as the old cattle drives. And so the cookie was a very important part of the crew in the old times of those great cattle drives from Texas to Kansas. This poem is a tribute to that chuck wagon. It's called Our Friend Chuck Wagon. An army travels on its stomach, a wise person once said, because a food supply is important when a group's marching ahead. We have to have food when a group is on the move. It's essential to life and to keep us in the groove. That's true for armies, as seen from soldiers' leadership, and for others, such as a lengthy family trip. And it was also true in yesteryear on cattle drives of old, when longhorn herds came north with cowboys brave and bold. Those cowboys had to eat, so a chuck wagon came too, with food supplies and a cook to make it do. It might have sourdough for biscuits, lots of pots and pans, with coffee, dried fruit, beans, and maybe something in some cans. The chuck wagon would roll along, accompanying the herd, to serve the cowboys food when the boss would give the word. We give thanks for this system, which former history reveals. I guess the chuck wagon was the original Meals on Wheels. Happy trails.
Surecrop Fertilizers was started by my father, Don Sherman, and my mother, Shirley Sherman. Family business that started in the 80s. We predominantly focus on plant nutrients and what we can do to give growers better responses with the fertilizer dollars that they do, and what we can do to make those things work better for the grower. We're based out of Seneca, Kansas. We work with growers in their soil analysis to figure out what they need, and then we can put those in a blend that gives them the best results, and so that we can deliver that direct to their farm so that they have those nutrients where they need them, when they need them, and so that they can apply them in a manner that's very efficient to them and works well on their planting systems and what they're doing. Sure Crop Fertilizers has been around for a long time. We always say we're big enough to take care of everything you need, but we're small enough to do it quickly. You can get a hold of us at 1-800-635-4743. Our website is surecropfertilizers.com, and you can always email me at corey@surecropfertilizers.com, and with any questions you have, we'll be glad to answer it and work with you.
In 1821, a trade route was opened from Missouri in the United States across prairies and mountains to Mexico. In 2021, we will mark 200 years of epic conflicts and grand adventures, larger-than-life personalities, and sweeping landscapes. Join us on an historic journey. The Santa Fe Trail lives on.
Find us on social media or santafetrail.org. Welcome to the Western Kansas Wildlife Travel Center, right here in my hometown of Oakley, Kansas. We're the front door of Western Kansas, located on 3 main highways, I-70, US 83, and US 40. And all those roads lead to history, beautiful scenery, and adventure, no matter which direction you go. We now have an Ihop. That brand that you've trusted up and down the road in all your travels is staffed with local folks, real people, just like you and me, and we're waiting on you to join us. So for fun, adventure, fuel up, fuel your body, and let's have some fun.
This segment brought to you by Kansas Farm Bureau, the voice of agriculture. To join today or for more information, go to kfb.org or find us on Facebook and Twitter.
Michelle has a wonderful segment this morning. You know, she used to be the director of the Little House Museum here in Kansas, and she's going to talk about how Christmas was celebrated at the Little House on the Prairie. And in honor of you, Michelle, I wore my sparkles this morning. I thought these baubles were especially sparkly this morning, and Michelle always has something pretty and sparkly on. Good morning, Michelle.
Good morning, Deb. I cannot believe December is already here. This month, I'm going to be looking at Christmas traditions. And what a better way to start than looking at Christmas Little House on the Prairie style. Christmas evokes memories of time spent with family and friends, glistening decorations, trimmed trees, and Christmas caroling. Have you ever wondered how our Kansas ancestors celebrated Christmas? One of Kansas's most famous residents was Laura Ingalls Wilder. Even though her family's time in Kansas was brief, life in their little house on the Kansas prairie left a lasting imprint on Laura. Christmas is one of Laura's most vivid memories from her time in Kansas. One Christmas in particular, Mary and Laura feared that Santa Claus would not be able to find them in Kansas, and that he could not travel at all because there was no snow, and the nearby creek was roaring and high. To make matters worse, the girls also worried that their friend Mr. Edwards would not be able to spend Christmas with them because he could not cross the creek. Pa hunted and brought home a turkey. Ma prepared the turkey, and the Ingalls settled in for Christmas Eve. Ma hung their stockings on the mantel. Mary and Laura worried that when morning came, there would be no Christmas. When morning came, the girls were surprised to hear the voice of their good friend, Mr. Edwards, at the door. Mr. Edwards braved the fast, high waters of the creek to be with the Ingalls and bring Christmas to the girls. While in Independence, Mr. Edwards met Santa Claus himself. Since Santa's reindeer could not cross the creek, Mr. Edwards volunteered to bring the presents back to Mary and Laura. Ma put the gifts in their stockings while Mr. Edwards told Mary and Laura how he met Santa. The girls could not contain their excitement. They asked so many questions and hung on Mr. Edwards's every word. Finally, they dug into their stockings to discover they each received a new tin cup, a peppermint stick, a heart-shaped cake sprinkled with white sugar, and a shiny new penny. Just when they thought the gift-giving was done, Mr. Edwards pulled out sweet potatoes from his pockets for the Ingalls Christmas dinner. Christmas, Mr. Edwards, and Santa Claus found the Ingalls after all. I hope you enjoyed today's segment and that you'll join me next time for another historical adventure somewhere around Kansas.
Wonderful to start December with you. And again, we had our month of gratitude last month, but let's just continue to be grateful, okay? Grateful for each and every one of you. I'm Deb Goodrich, and I'll see you somewhere around Kansas.
Closed captioning brought to you by Ag Promo Source. Together we grow. Learn more at agpromosource.com. ValleyVet.com is your one-stop shop for your every animal need. From prescription meds, vaccines, equipment, and more for the ranch to the show ring. Shop ValleyVet.com for fast shipping and great prices.
Valley Vet Supply.
Welcome to the Western Kansas Wildlife Travel Center, right here in my hometown of Oakley, Kansas. We're the front door of Western Kansas, located on 3 main highways, I-70, US 83, and US 40. And all those roads lead to history, beautiful scenery, and adventure, no matter which direction you go. We now have an Ihop. That brand that you've trusted up and down the road in all your travels is staffed with local folks, real people, just like you and me, and we're waiting on you to join us. So for fun, adventure, fuel up, fuel your body, and let's have some fun.
Sure Crop Fertilizers was started by my father, Don Sherman, and my mother, Shirley Sherman. Family business that started in the 80s. We predominantly focus on plant nutrients and what we can do to give growers better responses with the fertilizer dollars that they do, and what we can do to make those things work better for the grower. We're based out of Seneca, Kansas. We work with growers in their soil analysis to figure out what they need, and then we can put those in a blend that gives them the best results, and so that we can deliver that direct to their farm, so that they have those nutrients where they need them, when they need them, and so that they can apply them in a manner that's very efficient to them and works well on their planting systems and what they're doing. Sure Crop Fertilizers has been around for a long time. We always say we're big enough to take care of everything you need, but we're small enough to do it quickly. You can get a hold of us at 1-800-635-4743. Our website is surecropfertilizers.com, and you can always email me at Corey@surecropfertilizers.com, and with any questions you have, we're glad to answer and work with you.